Thank you for watching. My name is Glen Morgan, and this is We the Governed. And today we're going to be talking about a subject that is probably pretty familiar and matters if you happen to live in the Pacific Northwest in particular. And this really has to do with this recent announcement by Trump of right here where he's going to designate Antifa officially as a terrorist organization. And of course, this has come out about recently, and partially, I do believe, as a result of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it really is coming out as something that has been kind of really in the works for years. If you've been paying attention to what these guys have been doing all over the country. And if you're in Portland or Seattle, this is not an unfamiliar look. These guys especially came out during the BLM riots and in Seattle and really did a lot of damage then. They decided to take over many square blocks up in Seattle here for the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, Chaz or CHOP, depending on which time in that era, and they handed out guns out of the back of cars to all their Antifa friends. It was a chaotic time and a very lawless time up in Seattle. Multiple people were killed there. It wasn't the summer of love that Mayor Dinkin promised us at the time, and it was quite a mess. In fact, I did go up to Chaz myself with my son. He really wanted me to bring him up there and see it as a teenager at the time. So we dressed like Antifa as best we could figure it out and wore our own bandanas. I do remember the Antifa guards at the front saying, "Hey, you're not wearing the right color. Today it's going to be green." And so I thought that was kind of funny because obviously they were basically organized around controlling that whole area as much as they were controlling it at all. And that was a chaotic and a low moment, in my opinion, for the city of Seattle. Now, before we get too far into this, I just want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, hit the like and subscribe button down below. It only takes a couple seconds of your time. Feel free to share this video with others. If you like these stories that we're getting out there, you can also support us by going to the link down below in the video description. And it really does help just getting more and more word out to other people and sharing the truth about what's happening, particularly here in the Pacific Northwest. Now let's get back to CHOP right here, and Antifa, and the big mess and the great harm and terrible destruction that they brought, and the fact that they've basically been plaguing, in particular, the Pacific Northwest for quite some time. Rose City Antifa out of Portland has been kind of this epicenter of the poison that's been spreading out from them for quite some time. But of course, you have chapters up at Evergreen State College, you have them up in Seattle, you have them all over the place, all over the country now. But it really was here that you saw lots of those riots, lots of that damage, and lots of bad things going on not that long ago. And of course, it's still happening right now. Now, after the Charlie Kirk assassination, and when you look at some of these the Antifa sort of Reddit posts here, one of the things that really stood out to me, and this was right, it looks like it happened right before Trump formally designated them a terrorist organization. But one of the last comments here they said is, "You've been training your whole life for this." And I truly believe that the hardcore group of people that are actually involved in this, this is what they believe. They have been organizing this group and their belief system, and their organizing, their communication, and their leadership structure, and their funding, and their equipment, and everything, with this whole idea of this armed struggle or attack this whole time. And I do think this designation is going to just make them go quite a bit underground as they decide to move ahead. Now, if you want to know more about Antifa, really the Pacific Northwest own, Portland's own, Andy No here, and his book Unmasked, I think, it was actually really important for you to read. And if you follow him on X, Andy's been doing just a great job really unmasking the Antifa guys and what they've been doing for quite some time. He was assaulted by them. He's been threatened by them. He's got so many death threats from the Antifa people after the assaults that I know he's moved out of the Portland area. We brought him once to the Roanoke conference, and I remember he did a presentation there, and that's really, I've talked to him a couple times, but that was the longest conversation I've ever had with him. And I think Andy Ngo has just done really good work in outing what these guys are really up to. And obviously, Andy had been asking the Trump administration to declare these guys a terrorist organization officially, and it looks like his what he wanted to have happen is actually what did happen just a couple days ago. Now, one of the things I thought that Andy Ngo did really well is he's got a lot of access to some of these chat rooms and internal communications that go on amongst the Antifa crowd. And there was an interesting quote from one of these that came out just a couple days ago after the Charlie Kirk attack and assassination, and also some of the attacks on various Christian groups around the Pacific Northwest. And I just want to read this quote that came out of this chat group because it does illustrate the actual way I think they're looking at analyzing themselves and things that they've done. And here's a quote: Any fascists, that's what they call themselves, have attempted to counter several of these rallies in Portland and Seattle. And then I'm not quoting here, but these are the rallies of Christians who were organizing prayer meetings and worship services in Seattle and Portland. And so continue with the quote here. But these counters have been unequivocal, optical, and tactical failures. Simply put, Black-bloc counters of what appear to be normie worship events with children in attendance is a decidedly bad look and contributes to the American conservative persecution narrative, galvanizing otherwise politically inactive conservatives. Now, there's a couple things I'm going to point out here. Number one, this normie term, which is what they're going to use for anybody that's not them and not actively involved in the world as they see it. So they just classify you all as a bunch of normies. And of course, this is actually a pretty reasoned assessment of what was very, very ugly when they attacked the Christian worshipers up in Seattle and in Portland and in other places. They've done this before, but the videos really did make them look who they are, just nasty bullies attacking kids, attacking families that clearly weren't trying to hurt anybody. And the perpetual violence that Antifa displays in almost everything that they do really was unmasked in those events. And it did motivate, I think, thousands and tens of thousands of people that weren't probably that engaged before, because I think it began to awaken them, realize that you may not be interested in politics, but it's certainly going to be interested in you. And when you have kind of these Black-bloc crazy guys like these Antifa crowds around, willing to just assault and harm and kill you if they can get away with it, all over the place, this really opens up the door to waking up a lot of people that I don't think would have been woken before. Now, I've talked about these guys before. I did this video here about telling them to leave the guillotine at home because of the obvious violence that they keep trying to inspire down in Portland in particular. These guys have been around. I mean, those of us in the Pacific Northwest, we've seen them a lot. Andy Ngo obviously got assaulted. I know numerous other people. Brandy Cruz just assaulted a few weeks ago. And these guys bring things like green lasers. They're trying to put lasers in your eyes, trying to blind you. They try to spray wasp spray in your eyes, bear spray, of course. They try to do the premixed cement mix in milkshakes to dump it in, get it into your eyes. That was one of the things that they did when they were assaulting Andy. They beat up a lot of people. This is just what they do. They steal your phones or your GoPros. They don't want you to film the revolution that they're unleashing on the streets, and violence is just their primary calling card. And this is just who these guys are. This is who this group is. And for those leftists out there, Democrats that pretend that it doesn't exist, I'd be happy to take you and give you a MAGA hat and bring you down to one of these events. And after you get put in the hospital, you can tell me that the people who put you there just don't exist and it's not a real thing. Now, of course, here we are. We're dealing with these guys all over the place. They're not as, their numbers don't seem to be as large as they were during the BLM and riots of 2020 and 2021, that they just went on 100 days in a row down in Portland, I remember, where they were just doing these endless assaults on the federal building or attacking police officers. Just a lot of stuff has been going on. And of course, many people get concerned because things like this blue sky, right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, you had thousands of these Democrats and left-leaning, probably the more extreme ones, that were going on Blue Sky and basically saying, okay, who's next on our list? We got Charlie, and who should be next? And it was pretty sick just looking at all these people in the conservative movement, or religious people, or people that they just don't like, trying to identify them as future targets for the crazies. And I think that kind of stuff, as people see more of that, that's kind of what turns people away from this type of a group and this type of an organization. I really think we're going to be looking back on this, or at least Antifa is probably going to be looking back on this, as the good old days, back when they could take over 6 blocks of Seattle and a major city and get away with it, back when they could just have large gatherings and riot for fun, and it was all good times until it isn't anymore. And I suspect that's the kind of the situation that we're in right now. You got lots, Andy knows, just done such a good job posting up all of the mugshots from all these violent Antifa people that are getting arrested after they truly commit major assaults. I mean, the police, especially in Portland and Seattle, have generally been pretty easy going on these guys. They pretty much don't ever have any charges stick. A lot of left-leaning attorneys come out and represent them every time, and so no matter what harm they do, arson, assault, and attacking people, they seem to get away with it most of the time. And these people, though, it's exciting, it's probably their big calling, and the big question is, what's next for them right now? Now that they're officially a terrorist organization, now that their dreams have come true, and so they've been designated as that, and it looks like one of their own assassinated Charlie Kirk, which they probably view as a significant accomplishment amongst themselves. What will they really do as probably some of their membership falls away because this isn't what they signed up for, and others are super excited and they want to keep going down the rabbit trail and see what comes out at the other end. One of the best ways to understand where I think Antifa is probably going is based on the Students for Democratic Society, kind of the transition for a lot of the students back then in the 1960s, and how they became the Weatherman Underground, and that whole transition between just being out there protesting and having a cause, and then suddenly deciding that you couldn't get your way, using normal, traditional things like debate or reasoned thought or any kind of a normal approach that you would have in a functioning society. And so they decide to shift into blowing up buildings and assassinating people. And so you're going to have some of these guys that'll probably do that. I don't know how many, it's impossible to know, but that's going to be one of the transitions, and I think it's really worth knowing and understanding how that transition is going to occur. There's this kind of concept on the left that's been around for well over 100 some odd years, and they call it the propaganda of the deed. That was what it was originally called. And this is really just the idea that by doing things, like by blowing things up, by destroying something, by arson fire, by monkey wrenching the system, right? Doing something, that is the propaganda that you want. It allows you to get the word out, blowing up Wall Street, other things that the anarchists used to do, assassinating presidents, all kinds of stuff. This is the kind of thing that some of these people, the more extreme ones, will decide that this is what they have to do. And inevitably, you're also going to see this kind of nihilistic sort of behavior that, which is kind of a cultural feature right now of much of the left, that anything that hurts America is good for their movement, because right now they don't feel like they're winning, I don't believe, at this point in time. Now, they may have a bigger movement than they used to. They may feel like that they've got a lot of opportunity to go out and cause mayhem. They got more people coming in, but they're probably not winning, and that's why you have to resort to this type of violence. And this, I think you're going to see them shift into more of this and less of probably assassinating conservative personalities necessarily. It just seems most logical for where they're probably going to go. And if you remember, if you followed my channel at all, I've done a number of different stories about, for example, this has been one of my concerns about the nature of Washington State's power grid and our power grid across the country in general, just some of the structural weaknesses that exist there and the great harm that can be done if you take down the power grid for months or years at a time. And that's been a concern of mine. I've done a number of different videos about this. You can easily see them. Some of these are years old now, about just the weakness that exists there in a modern society. Losing the power grid is actually a fairly significant thing. And these guys have plenty of reference works and books. Nothing I'm going to say is going to give them any new ideas, because these ideas have been theirs for a long, long time. No matter if you go back 140 years to some of the early writings they've had, that red book up there, to just more modern writings, or even the Monkey Wrench Gang, all this stuff, Prairie Fire, a lot of these books, and there's a lot more new ones now too. But this really serves as kind of this institutional structure for, I think, the type of behavior that I think we can expect to see more as we move ahead. So then, of course, the question becomes, what do you do about it? And you can't do a lot. Law enforcement is going to have to probably take point on a lot of it, but there are things you can do just to be prepared yourself. And I think always be prepared is not just the Boy Scout motto. It's a good way to live your life. Be prepared in case something really tough happens in your community, and you need to be there to protect your family, to protect to make sure that they're safe and they have food and they have heat and shelter and protection when something really bad does occur and you do lose a power grid for a little while, or whatever bad things that these guys are going to be cooking up. It's a good idea anyway. It's a little investment of money, but it's the kind of thing that it doesn't hurt to be prepared. It's a wise choice. Previous generations did this without even thinking about it, but in the modern times, I find very few people are really that prepared, and it's helpful if you are. Always have a family emergency plan. This is good, just even if you have natural disasters. It doesn't have to be an Antifa instigated artificial destruction of arson or damage of some kind. It could just be an earthquake or a volcano blowing up or some other natural disaster. So have a family emergency plan. Where are you going to meet? What would you do if you're out on the road? How do you get back home? Where's your common point of support? How are you going to take care of grandpa and grandma or your pets or whatever? Just have a plan that you put together and everybody's on the same page. It really does help a lot. Get to know your neighbors, and this is something I always say, and I don't think we think about this often enough, but if you live rurally, it's a little bit easier in some ways. Just get to know everybody that lives anywhere near you, so that you aren't strangers suddenly getting to know each other in an emergency sort of environment. It's very helpful if they already know you a little bit ahead of time and you've had a chance to, you may not agree with them necessarily politically, or you may not even always like them too much, but in a crisis, everybody tends to have to pull together, and sometimes having people watch your backs in various properties even further away from you is a good idea. If you live in a neighborhood, in a city, same kind of thing, and even if you live in an apartment complex, just get to know the people who are around you. I think it's a wise choice and decision. It is a helpful part of what everybody needs to do. And then again, this is something that we're always focused on here, is getting these bad people out of government, because no matter how disruptive or destructive or harmful or crazy these people become, it is always easier to deal with tough times and emergency situations when you have rational, logical, capable, intelligent, smart people in government, of which there are very few. And if you have crazies in government that are sympathetic to bad guys, then what do you think they're going to do when something really bad happens? They'll be totally unprepared, they'll be incompetent, they won't do the right thing. So replacing people that are crazy with people that are sane is a good move. And to do that, you have to be engaged in your local government. You may not care about politics, but it certainly could be caring about you, whether you want it to or not. So get involved doing some basic civic engagement to replace bad people, to make sure that you understand who's actually running the show technically in your city or county or wherever you live. It's pretty helpful if you just start to understand that right now. With that, we'll see what happens with Antifa. That's the ball's in their court to some extent, and the people who are there, I'm hopeful that many of them will decide this isn't the path they need to go down, but I'm not super optimistic. I think there will be a lot of them that decide to go down really dark paths and cause a lot of harm and destruction. It just seems to be the nature of that belief system, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But no matter where you live, red state, blue state, these guys are around and they are coming for you. And so it's just important to be aware and be prepared, not be paranoid, but be prepared, and we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching, and the one thing I want to remind everybody, though, is if you do want to make a difference, the only way to have an impact in the future is if you're willing to show up. Because, as I always say, the future belongs to those who show up.